Since I started living alone, I've always been listening to something. You know how it goes, you're alone, there's silence, you just want to listen to something and you put on music, a podcast, YouTube video, whatever. The problem is, as time passed, I started listening more and more and more, to the point where literally I would listen to something in the shower, while eating, while walking, while doing random things like cooking, brushing my teeth, shit like that. And eventually this got to the point where I wouldn't even spend a single second during my day in silence. The very first thing that I would do after waking up is turning on something to listen to. And the last thing I would do before going to sleep, if I would even do that, is turn off what I was listening to. I knew I needed a change, so I decided to quit listening to content for an entire month. The rules I made for myself were the following: no YouTube, no Netflix, nothing of the like at all, no listening to podcasts at all, and no listening to music when I'm doing anything else. I can listen to music only if I'm not doing anything in the meantime and I'm just simply listening to the music with either closed eyes or reading the lyrics or something and nothing else. Or if I go to the gym, I allowed myself that because I fucking hate training without music, and I know for a fact that I have better performance when I have music, so why skip that even? And obviously if somebody else is showing me a video or somebody else is showing me a song, or I'm at a place where there is music, like at the gym, for example, I work there, there's music all day long, I don't want to listen to it, but it's still there, that obviously doesn't count because it's not in my control. During the first few days it was really weird. I remember being scared the day before. On the very first day I cancelled my Netflix and my YouTube Premium, and by the way, now that I got YouTube Premium again, after finishing the challenge, when I re-bought YouTube Premium, I was looking at the price like, what the fuck? YouTube, why the fuck does it cost me so much to use the platform that I could use beforehand with barely any ads, and now it's completely unusable? Like literally, at this point, if you don't have YouTube Premium, like whenever I had Premium and I would switch to another channel, or I would use YouTube on somebody else's device who doesn't have Premium, I would literally have to fucking puke in like 3 minutes because there's so many ads. The platform is completely unusable without Premium, and the Premium costs more and more every single time. What the fuck is going on? Okay, I'm done with the rant. Something I've noticed on the very first day of life is actually a lot more chill. It's a lot more calm when you don't always listen to something and when there is a little bit of silence. And I really enjoyed just walking outside and not listening to anything. And after an entire day of not listening to anything, when I finally got to the gym, I was really hyped to finally be able to listen to something, and I enjoyed it much more than usually. And also I remembered that I needed info from some exercise tier list video, but I couldn't look at videos, so I just opened the video, instantly paused it, and went down to the comments and searched for the comment where some guy writes down, you know, all of the exercises and the tiers, and I looked for what I needed there. It was so funny. But yeah, in the first few days it felt really weird. It felt like something was missing, and I constantly wanted to put on something. It was kind of like a reflex. It was just automatic. Whenever there would be silence, I would automatically want to put on something, and then I would realize, hey, I'm doing the challenge, I can't do it. At around week 1, I needed to make one exception for watching a movie because I needed to write about it for school, and if I wouldn't have done that, I would have failed my subject, so I'm obviously not going to do that. I personally do not count that as cheating because, like, what the fuck else did I do? But yeah, I watched the movie, I wrote an essay, I enjoyed it, it was fine. And something I noticed is that I literally started procrastinating eating, because while I was eating I couldn't do anything else because my hands were busy. I couldn't listen to anything, I couldn't watch anything, I couldn't use my phone, nothing. There was nothing happening, it was just me staring at the wall and eating food. And it was boring as fuck, so I literally just didn't even want to eat. I was like, I wanted to eat at like 9 o'clock, I wrote this in my journal, and then at 10:15 I still haven't eaten. I was just sitting there like, fuck, I should eat. I really thought that I would listen to more music while only listening to the music, because that was the only way I could listen to music besides working out. But I barely did it, honestly. And I remember around the 10th day where everybody was talking about the new Blood Incantation album, and I was like, I just simply can't listen to it because I just don't have the time to just sit down and just listen to music. So eventually I put it on at the gym, and I actually fucking hated it. And another thing that I noticed on the 10th day is that I didn't want to automatically always put on something anymore. it still felt weird to go without music and to go without podcast, but I didn't automatically want to do it anymore. It wasn't a completely thoughtless habit at this point. I would say that the first 2 weeks were relatively easy. I did get a lot of urges to turn on something to listen to, but it was very easy to resist them. But after that, I got to the 16th day, which was unarguably the most difficult day during my entire challenge, because I don't even know why. For some reason, I just felt kind of alone on that day and I really wanted to listen to something, but I couldn't. And this was really the hardest part of the challenge, that whenever I wanted to hear another human speak, it wasn't that easy, because it's not always an option to actually talk to somebody, but that's the only option that you have when you cannot listen to anything. I got a couple more days like that after the 16th day, and I would say that the last 2 weeks of the challenge was a lot harder to power through than the first 2 weeks. Because the first 2 weeks went by really fast, the whole thing was new, and I also probably had a bunch of shit to do, I remember, and on the last 2 weeks, it wasn't the same, it was a lot harder. And even though I wanted to listen to something much less frequently, the temptation was much bigger. Something that I have to admit is, I think 3 or 4 days before the end of the challenge or something, where I work, there is music going on all day and it's usually not ours. But after the same song started playing for the 4th fucking time in a 6-hour long time period, I was like, alright, I cannot do this shit anymore. We're going to listen to my stuff from now on, and from then on, we were listening to my stuff. I still didn't want to listen to it, but we had to listen to something, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to listen to the same fucking song for the 5th and 6th time again and again and again that I hated for the first time as well. So I think that can be excusable, at least in my opinion. Oh, and by the way, what was playing was the radio. So I'm asking for the people who work at the radio, what the fuck are you doing? Are you not getting enough money to just collect fucking 200, 300 songs that you can play every single day? You repeat the same songs every day anyways, but don't repeat the same song several times a day, come on. What I've noticed throughout the whole challenge is that life was a lot more chill. Everything was a lot calmer, a lot more peaceful. And I got way more ideas because I finally had time to be with my own thoughts. I got a lot more ideas when it comes to making videos. I wrote down so many ideas of what videos I want to make in the future, and that's a really good thing. Another really good thing is that I didn't listen to any provocative shit and stuff about how bad the world is now and all that. Not like I listened to news or anything, but the problem is, even if you listen to more useful and self-improvement podcasts and stuff like that, there's so much negativity in them as well, where people always go on to outline that this is wrong with the world and that is wrong with the world, and in this age we're more addicted to our phones than anything, and divorce rates are rising and all that shit. And I just don't want to listen to that, and it pisses you off, even though it doesn't really have a real effect on your life, in a way that if you don't hear it, you don't notice it necessarily. And a lot of these things about how the world is going into the wrong direction and all that, you really only hear that on the internet, and when you just live your everyday life, that's not really necessarily what you see, and you start seeing the world through a much more negative lens when you listen to a lot of that stuff, even if the main goal is self-improvement, and even if the main goal of the podcast is to say that, yeah, well, the world is fucked, but this is what you can do. It really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you're still going to think like, yeah, the world is fucked, but is it really? Like, it doesn't matter. One example I can say to that is Chris Williamson. I listened to his podcasts a lot recently before starting this challenge, and they're good and everything, but they didn't necessarily improve my view of the world. And so I think you have to be careful with listening to stuff like that, especially when you listen to it all the time. And the main thing that I noticed is that I was a lot more social. I went out to meet people a lot more. I spent time with others a lot more, and I made a lot of great memories, and I'm really glad for that. But this is also a double-edged sword, because obviously going out and talking with people and socializing is a good thing. And it's better to actually spend time with real people and build something, a friendship, a relationship, whatever, rather than just always watching some YouTuber or listening to a podcast or music or something like that. But it's a double-edged sword, as I said. The other edge of the sword is that it takes up so much time and energy that it really limits you when it comes to anything else. For example, I got a little late with the video uploads, as where there was an entire week where I didn't upload anything, and even after that I got late with a couple of uploads. And that hasn't happened in the past like half a year or even more, but it just simply takes up so much time to actually go out and do stuff with others, especially because I'm a very extroverted person, and if there is nothing else, no YouTube, no nothing, I need a lot of interactions. But if I don't have that, honestly, if I meet with my friends like 1-2 times a month and I just watch 20 minutes of some YouTube videos, some guy talking every single day, and I'm just here at home and doing stuff, I'm perfectly fine. And that is partly a bad thing because it isolates you from other people, but it's also partly a good thing. I would say it really depends on what you're trying to do, but for me, something that I'm going to try to do from now on is to strike a balance between the two and try to socialize a little bit less than during this past month, but more than before that. What will happen now that I am done with the challenge? Something that I want to keep doing even after the challenge, especially now that I got used to it and it's kind of natural to me, is not listening to anything while showering, while eating, while going out and walking, and while doing random shit like brushing my teeth and vacuuming and, you know, just all of this typical daily stuff. However, I will start listening to stuff again where I really don't see value in not doing it and doing things that I absolutely cannot stand without it. For example, cooking. I motherfucking hate cooking. And usually I just called some family members even now because I just cannot cook while just cooking because it's so fucking boring and I hate it so much. So I'm going to allow myself from now on again to listen to things while cooking, while doing cardio. I did cardio all the time without listening to anything and it was so extremely boring. I tried to read instead to entertain myself. Also, I'm reading Berserk and I always put some death metal together with it because it passes really well. Usually listen to like either Cannibal Corpse or Blasphemy while reading Berserk, and I wasn't able to do that now and it was so kind of weird. It just goes so well with it, so I'm going to obviously start doing that again. And I'm making a battle vest. If you don't know what that is, it's kind of like a metal thing. It's like a vest that you sew patches on of pants. And one of the most relaxing activities for me before doing the challenge was just putting on some movie or video or whatever and sewing on the patch while listening to that and watching that. And I wasn't able to do it now, I just had to sew the patch in silence. It was still kind of fun, not gonna lie. But I'm going to start listening to stuff while doing that again because I really enjoy it. And what I can say now at the end of the challenge is I feel much more okay with being in silence. I'm not afraid of silence. I remember before, I would always go to the store while listening to something, and one day I decided, hey, now I'm going to go to the store without my headphones, and I was like, fuck, this is actually scary. I don't feel that anymore. I'm okay with silence, I'm okay with not listening to anything, and I just feel normal again and not like some retarded iPad kid. And I know for a fact that I'm not the only one who has or had this problem. A lot of people are listening to shit all the time. This is exactly why podcasts are the meta right now, because you can make a very large amount of content relatively easily. I know that even with the podcast you have to make sure that the mics are good and you have to prepare with questions and all of that, but you don't really have to edit it as much. And you can just sit down, have a conversation for 3 hours, record it, and you have a 3-hour podcast. It's not like making a YouTube video where I'm here talking for like 40-50 minutes and then at the end of the day it's going to be a 10-15 minute video and I'm going to edit it for several hours and make thumbnail and all of that shit. And the reason why this format of podcasting is becoming so popular now is because people just cannot stay in silence anymore. They have to constantly listen to something, and they put on podcasts. They're like, oh, I'm just gonna put on a podcast about something interesting, something that I can learn from, so at least it's productive. So they justify constantly putting on stimulation into their brains. And so I know that I'm not the only one with this, so I recommend to all of you to try this challenge. Just do it for 1 month and see what happens. You will look at content and at the entire world for a completely different lens. Thank you for watching and watch this video next.